Hello everyone, welcome back. Let story begin. Awoke with a shiver, the icy fingers of dread clawing at my spine. The room was dimly lit by the flickering candles, casting eerie shadows on the ancient, cracked walls. My name is Jonathan, and I find myself trapped in a nightmarish tale that intertwines history with horror. The year is 1888. And I am a journalist, tasked with investigating the gruesome murders that have terrorized the Whitechapel district of London. The infamous serial killer, Jack the Ripper, has claimed 5 victims thus far, their lives extinguished in the most gruesome and macabre ways imaginable. My quest for answers led me to the dark and labyrinthine alleyways of Whitechapel, a place where evil seemed to linger in the very air. As I walked through these streets, I could not help but think of the countless souls who had suffered and perished here. It was a foggy evening, the kind that seemed to swallow the world whole. I reached the site of the latest murder, where the hapless victim, Mary Jane Kelly, had met her gruesome end. The scene was horrific, her body mutilated beyond recognition. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, and I struggled to keep my composure. My investigation soon led me to a local tavern, where I hoped to gather information from the downtrodden and desperate denizens of Whitechapel. The place was dimly lit, and the patrons huddled in corners, their faces etched with fear and despair. I approached the bar and ordered a whiskey to calm my nerves. As I sipped my drink, a haggard man with hollow eyes and a tattered coat shuffled towards me. He introduced himself as Charles, a former gravedigger who had been plagued by nightmares since the first murder. His voice trembled as he recounted tales of shadowy figures that roamed the streets at night, their laughter chilling to the bone. Charles leaned in closer, his breath reeking of alcohol and desperation. He whispered a name that sent shivers down my spine, Elizabeth Stride. He claimed to have seen her ghost, wandering the alleys, her throat slit, and her eyes devoid of life. I had to know more. That night, armed with my lantern and a gnawing sense of dread, I ventured into the dark alleys where Elizabeth Stride had met her grisly end. The fog seemed to close in around me, the silence broken only by the distant cries of unseen creatures. And then, I heard it, the faintest whisper, a mournful cry that echoed through the night. I followed the sound deeper into the labyrinth of shadows. My lantern flickered, threatening to extinguish, but I pressed on, compelled by an otherworldly force. And then, I saw her, a spectral figure in a tattered dress, her throat marked by a crimson gash. Elizabeth Stride's ghost stared at me with empty eyes, her gaze filled with accusation. She beckoned me closer, and I could not resist. As I approached, the very air around me grew colder, and the shadows closed in, suffocating me. In that moment, I knew that I had stumbled upon something beyond the realm of the living. I was trapped in a horrifying echo of the past, a nightmarish tapestry woven with the threads of history and horror. The ghost of Elizabeth Stride whispered a name, Jack the Ripper. Suddenly, the alley erupted in a cacophony of malevolent laughter, and a dark figure emerged from the shadows, a cloaked and sinister presence. I had come face to face with the infamous killer himself. Jack the Ripper's eyes gleamed with malevolence as he approached, a wicked smile on his lips. He raised a gleaming blade, and the world seemed to spin in a dizzying whirl of terror. As I stared into the abyss of his eyes, I realized that I had become part of a horrifying tale, one that would be told for generations to come. History and horror had converged, and there was no escaping the nightmarish grip of the past. And then, with a flash of steel, the world went dark, and I became yet another victim of Jack the Ripper's reign of terror, forever entwined in the chilling annals of history and horror.